ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the first time in 4 years. The world famous Rich Wilson Show is back live on the air. And, oh, okay, cool. I just got my YouTube alert that says, hey, look, you're streaming. No shit, you think? So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. I really was hoping that I'd get to start this, you know, and have this celebration, 4 years back on the air kind of thing, and now we're burning the house to the ground. So everything is going as planned. This is a chaotic event as always. Okay, so why all of a sudden out of nowhere have I decided to be live on the air after 4 years? Well, you know, after talking with my buddy Fister, and we've started doing these podcasts, stuff like that, I really thought, hey, I'd like to get back on the air again and do my show again. Okay, well, I've been waiting on it, and then this weekend happened. Now, I know you guys all know about the deal on Sunday, but I bet how many of you actually heard about what happened on Saturday in South Austin involving a mass shooter as well? I bet nobody heard about that. So we're going to talk about that today. The reason why I've decided to come back live onto the air is because, and folks, for those of you watching on Facebook Live over there, if I'm not looking at you, it's because I'm staring at the camera we've got for our podcast. Okay? So anyhow, the reason why I'm back live on the air is today I got into a ridiculous argument with a person about gun control. Now, for those of you who've been living under a rock for the last 72 hours, actually, it's been more like 24 now. We had a mass shooting incident in South Texas. Okay, right, a little town outside of San Antonio. A gentleman walked into a church, opened fire with an AR-15, killed 26 people, and injured another 20 more. Okay? Now, if it wasn't for the fact of a good Samaritan with a gun, it would have actually been worse. But because a guy with a gun, with an AR-15, across the street, barefoot, intervened, more people are alive tonight. So let's get into the discussion about gun control, because that's what it really is all about, because that's what everybody's turned it into. If you pay attention to the Hollywood people, which if you do, you're an idiot, maybe you should stop breathing because you're a waste of space, you would believe that this whole thing is the fault of Republicans voting for Donald Trump. That because they voted for Donald Trump, people are now going to be marching into churches at random and shooting people while they worship. That fact couldn't be any further from the truth. It had nothing to do with Donald Trump, and in fact, if those of you who jumped on the quick bandwagon, they turned around and said, oh, this is because anybody can buy a gun, or this is because of that, or this is because of that. You didn't wait for the facts to come out. Instead, the CNN, MSNBC sheep that you are decided to go along with the very first thing that popped out. Okay, let me tell you the facts of the situation. Mr. Kelly, I'm not going to refer to him as his full name, decided he was going to take his beef with his family and go into the church where they frequented and open up a can of whoop ass on everybody in there with an AR-15. Okay? He ended up killing 26 people. They ranged from the ages of 18 months old to 76 years old. The wounded are also considered in that category of age brackets. Now, the reason why this guy did it has become more and more clear as the moments have gone by. I know, I've listened to it all day. This guy was in the United States Air Force. He was dishonorably discharged after spending a year in prison for beating up his wife and cracking the skull of his 5-year-old stepchild. He got out of the service, became a security guard, and over the period of time was able to purchase 4 weapons. Now that's where the problem happens. Okay? That is an issue. Because he got a dishonorable discharge, it automatically equals out to a felony in the civilian world, so how in the world was he able to buy a gun? Felons cannot purchase firearms. By the way, for those of you watching on Facebook Live, if the camera seems to be shaking a lot, it's because we have dogs and a Miranda walking around under the desk. Okay, so anyway. So during that time frame, he was able to purchase 4 guns. He married again, and he ended up not getting along with this one or her family. Oh, what a big surprise. Then this gentleman decided at some point it was a good idea to take his AR-15, to take his handguns, and to march into the church at their local town and open up fire. he did end up killing the grandmother of his current wife. In the process of doing this, a gentleman across the street heard the ruckus. Those were his words exactly. He went across the street, he grabbed his AR-15 out of his gun safe, went across the street and decided to intervene. In the process, Mr. Kelly dropped his AR-15, went to his handgun, and returned fire. At some point, Mr. Kelly was shot by the individual. However, he was still able to get into his truck and speed away. The Good Samaritan turned around and waved down a guy as he was coming and said, "Hey, that guy just shot up the church. We need to go get this guy." And off they went, speeding at over 95 miles an hour, chasing him down and exchanging gunfire. Now, that's the part that I disagree with. While you're driving down the road, you do not need to be exchanging gunfire, because now innocent people that aren't even involved in this situation are now put into harm's way. And in fact, in law enforcement, we were told not to do that under any circumstances. However, at some point, Mr. Kelly lost control of his vehicle, and Mr. Kelly ended up in a ditch, and at that point, that is when law enforcement determined that he succumbed to a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Those are the facts of the situation. The opinions that are floating around about this are ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And let me explain why. Today, people have been posting up how AR-15s need to be banned. I even saw one idiot that said every semi-automatic weapon needs to be taken out of the hands of every American citizen, and only law enforcement and federal agents and also the United States military should have semi-automatic weapons. You, sir, are a moron. Maybe you should not turn around and post online, because it's people like you that helps drive the chaos of misinformation. Here's a little known fact that nobody's discussing. They want to get increased gun control and gun regulations. However, we have almost 40,000 regulations on guns. And in fact, we have more regulations than any two countries in the known world, next to countries that have just outright banned civilians from owning firearms. Okay, so we have all these laws. Now you ask, how did this man get a hold of a gun if we do have these laws? Well, the problem is the more complicated you make the drain, the more easy it is to stop up the system. Well, unfortunately now, we have a whole bunch of people that are all screaming collusion with the federal government and how the president got elected, and the FBI has been focusing their attention there. Well, the thing is, when you get a gun, especially an AR-15, you have to go through a background check. If the FBI does not respond within so many days of you being flagged and not able to own a gun, guess what happens? You clear the background check. Well, this individual had applied for an AR-15 and bought it at an Academy Sports in San Antonio, Texas. The time went by, the FBI did not respond, so Academy cleared him for the purchase of the firearm. That is how a felon was able to purchase a firearm. So the federal government is the one who dropped the ball, not the regulations, not the individual selling him the gun, and sure not the guy who knowingly purchased a firearm, making an attempt at it, which is actually a felony for him to even attempt to purchase the firearm. So we have all these regulations, and how do they stop? How do we stop people like him purchasing firearms? Well, one person suggested to me in a conversation that we needed to overhaul the 40,000 rules and regulations we have on purchasing guns. Well, you know what? You're absolutely correct. We do need to overhaul them, because the system is so complicated that law-abiding citizens like myself, who served this country honorably, got an honorable discharge, and has never broken a law, and as a former law enforcement officer, has a hell of a time trying to buy a firearm. In fact, it's harder for me to buy a firearm than some of these people shooting people in cold blood on the streets. Why? Because I do it legally and responsibly. So do a lot of other people I know. However, let's throw another statistic at you. If you take Las Vegas, which happened a couple months ago, you take this incident where 26 people lost their lives in a church gunned down by an AR-15. Both incidences had an AR-15 involved. You take that, you multiply it by 10, and you still do not have the amount of people killed by automobile drivers this year alone. This year alone. But you can simply take your birth certificate down to DMV, pass a test, and you can drive an automobile while barreling down the road, can murder anybody you want. In fact, we saw that in Charlottesville, Virginia. A moron in a Dodge decided he was going to go run over people. And what I'm amazed about this actually is the Dodge lasted after it hit the first person and didn't fall apart. But that's a Dodge. That's my personal opinion. But it's easy for people to get a driver's license, drive wherever they want. Unless you want to drive a semi-truck, then you might as well, you cut off your right arm, you pray to God, you spin around 3 times backwards, do 4 backflips, you bribe a guy somewhere in a back room in a mafia joint, and you might get a CDL. However, you could take an idiot who's never been behind the road and put him behind the wheel of a quad cab pickup truck, and you watch them murder a family on the side of the road because they have no idea what they're doing and they can't park with Facebook while they're driving down the road. But we want to have gun control. We want to have stricter gun control laws. We have strict gun control laws. We have a problem in enforcing it. It's the same thing with immigration. We have immigration laws, but we have a problem enforcing it. And unfortunately, you all buy into the media hype and you follow along lockstep with the media when they tell you that this is a gun law issue, that we need to do gun control. We need to do gun control. And nobody's paying attention to what's really happening. The guy in Las Vegas bought everything legally. There was no reason in the world for him to be on the radar. The FBI and the ATF have said this on more than one occasion, but all of you said he should have been able to buy all that. He purchased it legally. He went through all the background checks. He was a multi-millionaire. And then he just decided that I'm going to snap and I'm going to kill a lot of people at a concert venue because, well, I thought at first the guy really hated country music. Turned to find out he even planned Lollapalooza. Well, now we have a situation where a guy walks into a church and starts shooting up people, and morons immediately said, well, it's because they're being punished because they voted for Donald Trump. Or other morons are saying that, oh, well, he's a terrorist. He's an extremist because he hated the Christian religion. Okay, folks, we have terminologies for people for a reason. Terrorists are people who take an ideology and force that ideology onto people by making them fear for their own lives and their safety of others. That is a terrorist. A psychopath is a person who walks down the street one day and does right and wrong, and then the next day decides, nope, I'm going to do wrong even though I know it's wrong because it feels good. That's a psychopath, and that's what this is. People immediately got on to Donald Trump and said Donald Trump was wrong for not labeling him as a terrorist. He's not a terrorist. He was not trying to inflict the fears on a nation of people by spouting off rhetoric or screaming Allah Akbar while he was doing it. Nor was he screaming that I hate Christians and all Christians should die, or was he saying I'm doing this because the Jews are running the country into the ground, or any of these natures. He did this because he had a domestic vendetta against his family. That does not qualify him as a terrorist. However, doing what he did to an 18-month-old child 5 times at point-blank range does qualify him as a psychopath. That's what he is. Plain and simple. There is no other definition. Law enforcement, the federal agencies have all said this is not a terrorist act, and they're not opening up a terrorist investigation. Nor did ISIS immediately come out and claim responsibility. In fact, ISIS was probably sitting at home in their cave somewhere, watching this shit on their live network, because God knows they get better internet signal than I do. Sitting there going, why the hell didn't we think of this? Because obviously somebody in the United States can buy an assault weapon and go shoot a bunch of people in a church. The only difference between this guy and our guy is he wasn't screaming Allah Akbar while he was doing it. But if he was, then this would be an easier situation to deal with, wouldn't it? If the guy was screaming Allah Akbar while he was killing people, it would be so much more simpler to handle. Instead, this was a deranged white guy. Oh, I said white guy. Yeah, I didn't say that he was anything else. He was a white dude. That was a psychopath. Now you're going to say that, oh, you're only labeling a psychopath because he's white. Well, let's take a look at this country's history. Since we started keeping records in the 1800s on people killing multiple people, you go down the list and 93% of them are white. 87% of them are males. And every single one in that situation was considered or deemed a psychopath in some nature. Whether they weren't coddled as a child, or whether they were beaten by their old man until they were senseless, Whatever excuse you want to give, the psychopath switch went off, and they killed lots of people. But you say that I only label this because he's a white man. Well, let's take a look at the two people in Washington, D.C. that were long-distance serial killers. Both of them were black. Did anybody say that they were anything other than psychopaths? No, they labeled them as psychopaths. So to sit there and say that we only label him a psychopath because he's white is inherently ignorant and dangerous. Spreading crap like that is the reason why this country is divided. Because you want to say that we only label him because of this, but because of that. Let me tell you something. I've seen that you sit there and say that we only label black criminals as thugs. We don't refer to anybody else as thugs. Well, that's also a lie. They have referred to many white men who have conducted criminal activities in urban settings as thugs as well. So try again. Okay, they said that we don't label white people as terrorists. I'm sorry, Timothy McVeigh was labeled as a terrorist. He was investigated as a terrorist, and he was a white male. Do I need to continue on with the garbage that is being spewed by the media? You unfortunately like to fall in line. Now, I know most of my listeners and my diehard listeners from 4 years ago that have started to gain knowledge that, hey, look, Rich is back on the air, know better because you're informed. However, the MSNBC high school dropouts in their grandmother's basement eating Cheetos, playing World of Warcraft, don't seem to get a clue. And you're the kind of people that I'm trying to educate. Ladies and gentlemen, my show is simply here to tell you what the hell is going on. It is your decision on how you want to run with it. You can take what I say and you can base an opinion off of that. If it is an opinion, I will tell you it's an opinion. If it is fact, I will tell you it's a fact. And that's how we go. According to my chat room currently right now, Super Dave says he loves as well, but he doesn't do these things. Okay, I play Fallout 4. I like to play Skyrim. I even play Roller Coaster Tycoon. Yeah, I'm your typical nerdy guy that likes to play video games. However, I'm not thinking about taking any of my guns out and shooting a church full of people, even if I disagree with their beliefs. My theory about this is as follows. I don't care what you believe in as long as it brings you peace and you're not hurting somebody else. If it allows you to wake up in the morning and put your pants on one leg at a time, or if you're that idiot who likes to argue with me, go, well, I jump into my pants. Either or, as long as it brings you some kind of solace in your life. However, I'm going to totally disagree with you if you think that because somebody disagrees with you, they need to be hurt. No one needs to be hurt. I disagree with a lot of people. Yes, I voted for Donald Trump. I'm a white guy, but I'm not a racist. But if you listen to the media, because I'm white and I voted for Donald Trump, I'm automatically a racist. I should run out and join the KKK, or I should be a Nazi. You like this that I'm wearing right now? You see this little flag? It's on this side. I keep forgetting the camera's backwards. Okay? You will never ever find me at a KKK rally, nor will you ever find me at a neo-Nazi rally. Why? I'm an American. I'm not a white American. I'm not a Scottish American. I'm not some Joe Blow American. I'm simply an American. Okay? There is the other problem we have in this country. People giving them a label that's more important in the country they're from. Because they put it in front. John Wayne said it best, when you add a hyphen, you are making everyone else less than you and giving yourself self-importance that was not earned, it was simply implied. Now, you've heard what I've had to say. I am the world famous Rich Wilson. This is why I do this. I'm going to have even more shows coming up in the future. For those of you watching here on Facebook Live, I hope you guys enjoyed what I had to say. However, I'm going to now touch on another subject. No, I'm not going to pull Michael Jackson and touch little boys. Now, the people that are constantly jumping on the Donald Trump is a horrible person and the worst person ever in history. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I think we kept that person from being president. Why? All of you liberal Democrats are running around and saying that, oh, he rigged the election, he did this and did that. Okay. Well, we just learned not too long ago that Hillary Clinton and the DNC just rigged their own election. All of you people that were sitting there going, Bernie Sanders is my guy. Bernie Sanders is just like me. He won't sell out. Bad news, here's a news flash for you. He did sell out. He agreed to the DNC doing what they did to the tune of $1.7 million. But he's just like you. He's just like you. I'm sorry. Let me check my bank account. Nope, I'm broke. I ain't got $1.7 million. Bernie ain't like me. Nor is anybody offering me $1.7 million to shut up. If somebody offered me $1.7 million right now to shut this up, trust me, you would never see me live on air again. Why? $1.7 million will get me a lot of hookers and blackjack. Just saying. But at least I'm willing to admit it. Unlike the other idiots out there that are leading you around by the collar. Okay? A lot of them. Okay? I'm willing to admit this. I'm willing to be honest about it. Are they? No, they're not. And they're not going to. They're going to tell you what they want you to hear. They're going to tell you what they want you to do. Look at the people in the Antifa rallies. Look at these idiots. A bunch of white people running around with masks covering their faces because they know if mom and daddy see them on TV, they're going to get grounded and their Xbox is going to get taken away from them. Look at every single time they get interviewed. It's always some moron with a bandana wrapped around his face. Okay? And then every time the guy who's trying to talk to him and find out what he's about is sitting there with no mask on his face, dressed nicely, having a professional appearance, while he's getting yelled at by a child who has no idea what real life is about, because the worst thing he's ever run into is his girlfriend found out he was jerking off to Pornhub while he's in high school. That's his worst chaotic situation in his life. Meanwhile, the rest of us out here, we can't go to rallies because we have this thing called a job. As much as I would like to go protest along with other people because I think the United States has gone into the shithole, I can't, because I have to get up every day at 4:30 in the morning to go to work. I'd love to throw a mask on my face and run rampant around the city of Austin screaming I'm not treated equally and fairly. But I can't because I have a job. But I sure as hell don't want some 13-year-old kid that hasn't even figured out which end his penis goes into yet standing up for my rights. Personally, I think that organization was labeled properly as a terrorist organization because they do advocate violence. However, I would like to add one more thing onto that terrorist. They've got to be the dumbest terrorist organization ever. The reason why is they can't even show up to their own damn rallies. What happened on the 4th? Everybody was supposed to show up and protest in all these cities. There was what, 2? There was 2. Mainly because mom and dad caught wind of what was going on and made them mow the lawn. Sorry. Responsibilities as a juvenile sucks. Now let me calm down because my blood pressure has gone through the roof and I've already suffered 3 heart attacks in my lifetime, and last thing I want to do is have another one on the air. Because yes, my 3rd heart attack happened while I was live on air.
People don't need to see this.
Folks, this is where we're at as a country. This is and you sit here and probably think he's making fun of it, and this country is much better than what he is saying. No, it's not. Do you know why? Because this country is more divided now than it had ever been. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump. It has nothing to do with Barack Obama. It has nothing to do with George Bush. It has nothing to do with Bill Clinton or George Bush, Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter. Wait a minute, some of y'all are sitting there going, really, there was other people other than Barack Obama? Or George Bush? Yes, it's called learn history. That thing that if you don't learn, you're going to repeat it over and over again. Okay? It was this country deciding at some point that technology was worth way more than social interaction in a physical form. That is when this country started going downhill. Why? Because we'd rather get all of our information from some moron, once again, eating Cheetos, playing WoW in his grandmother's basement, who's never seen the light of day and is probably paler than Sheamus on WWE because the sun hasn't touched his skin, let alone a shower. Okay? And you'd rather listen to what he has to say. And you get your information from him. Well, here's a little piece of advice. Go outdoors. Turn the shit off. You're saying, well, you're advocating for us not to watch your show. Well, fuck yes, if it gets you outside, turn it off. Go see what's going on in the world, and you'll realize we are the reason why this country is divided. We are all sitting here saying that we're the victims. Instead of us sitting here trying to figure out together how we can solve the problem, we're all just going to sit here and say, that side's an idiot. That side's an idiot. They don't have anything to bring to the table. They don't have anything to bring to the table. That's why this country is falling apart, ladies and gentlemen. That's why this country is on the verge of a civil war. It has nothing to do with a bunch of elected morons that have the same equivalency as a crappy used car salesman. Because that's all they really are. They sold you a bit of goods to convince you to go out on a Tuesday, stand in line for hours on end like it's a freaking Kiss concert, and go cast a ballot and hope your guy wins. That's all it was. They don't really have any power. You are the ones with the authority and the power in this country. And unfortunately, all of you are squandering it on bickering with each other. That's all you're doing. I look on Facebook and either I'm watching some stupid video of some guy with his cat who figured out that the light shines off the mirror the right way and he can meow at it and maybe it'll move. Or some moron talking about how half this country should burn in hell because they don't believe in this. That's what it's turned into. Social media was supposed to be the grand experiment of how all of us could come together as a community to share ideas and inspire each other. Instead, we've used it to belittle each other and tell each other how small our penises are. That's what we've turned social media into. We have gone in the wrong direction with technology in this country, and it's bringing us to the ground. It has nothing to do with the government. So the next time you want to spout out, all this is Donald Trump's fault, why don't you take a good look in the goddamn mirror next time? Because this country is falling apart because of you, because of me, and because of everyone else. Because we've given up on the sociology of a society working together and turned it into, but it's all about me. I mean, my God, we've got people thinking that there's something that they're not. We have people who are hearing things that they're not. We have people that are believing in things that don't exist. And I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about there's people out there running around. They want to believe that the Bush is talking to them and gets up and walks across the street to get a Michelob. If you think I'm joking, I'm not. I've seen that posted on Facebook. Not to mention the multiple millions of you who honestly believe that the United States government was going to shut down the entire power grid of the United States of America. Do you understand we have over 39,000 power companies in this country? Do you understand that in order to pull a coordinated event like that, somebody would have told the news? But you guys are buying it because that's what social media has turned into. My only advice to you guys is unplug. Get yourself a life outside of, hey, look at how many beautiful selfies I can take today. Do something with yourself. To quote a TV series, mini-series that was on, we used to build great things. We used to inspire. We used to do things because we could. Because it was a challenge. Now we back down. We need to get back to that kind of society where we did great things. Great people inspired people to do great things. Maybe if the negativity went away, the United States would then again, in the words of Ronald Reagan, become that shining beacon upon the hill that everybody looks to and strives to be. Right now, everybody wishes they were another country. In fact, I've heard my own fellow citizens tell me, well, I think Australia's nice this kind of year. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but at least in America, you can see it coming when it's about to kill you. In Australia, you have no idea. You could be laying down on your bed, and an 8-legged freak the size of your head comes up, bites you, and 3 seconds later, you no longer exist. So I don't think Australia is really that great of a place to move to. In fact, I would prefer an island somewhere. I would like to have an island where I could have a beer in the sand and a beautiful island woman in a bikini walks up once in a while, gives me another beer, and then walks off and then asks me if I need anything else and then leaves me the fuck alone.
Sri Lanka.
Okay? That's what I dream for in my life. That's the future I want. Because I don't want to be a part of this future with all the rest of you, because the rest of you are driving this into the toilet. But if we would all shut the fuck up for 5 seconds and figure out how to work together, we could make this a wonderful ordeal. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for tonight. I've gone on for 30 minutes. I've run my mouth. Most of you are jumping off of cliffs right now because you think the end of the world is coming. It's not. After this show is over, the night will go on. You will go to bed. You will wake up in the morning and something will happen. If you're one of the lucky ones that doesn't wake up in the morning, well, we'll see you on the other side. The rest of us have got to stay here and deal with this cesspool and figure out how to figure it out. For everybody else, I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. This has been the world-famous Rich Wilson Show. Trust me, future episodes will be a little bit more cheery and a little bit more fun. Tonight was a serious matter because one idiot decided to get into a gun control argument with me. Okay? So that is that. For everybody here at the world-famous Rich Wilson Studios, and the folks, please stay tuned because the Raj and Rich show will be coming up, where it's going to be a whole lot more lighthearted, a lot more fun, and probably more dick jokes. So the rest of you can get through your night safe and sound. Folks, thank you very much for tuning in. The world famous Rich Wilson show is now off the air. Good night.